could you please introduce yourself and talk about how you ended up where you are now?
Yes, so my name's Nilisha Fernando. I'm an associate medical writer at Envision Pharma Group. So I spent 11 years in research before this. I started off with my PhD, which I finished in 2017. And then I did my first postdoc between 2017 to 2019 in Australia, where I'm from, at the ANU. And then I actually went over to the States for 3 years during 2020 to 2022. I spent another 3 years doing a second postdoc over there. So my background is vision science. So I actually was working in mostly macular degeneration research at the ANU. And then in the States, I actually was working on Alzheimer's disease research as well as other diseases of the eye. So I was able to study immune cells in both settings. So I guess I had about 6 years of postdoc experience and realized that I actually really loved my time as a researcher, and especially my time at NIH was very fruitful. Um, Being overseas during the pandemic was a bit challenging. I found that I really liked research, but I was tired of the bench. And I think at that point, I kind of really wanted to make a difference, but in another way. So I was thinking about what I wanted to do for my career and decided that I really liked the idea of clinical research. However, I'm not an MD. I actually have a PhD in kind of bench science, but not quite in as an MD. So I was thinking about what are the ways that I could leverage my skill set to be able to get more experience in kind of clinical research. I thought about my values and my skills, and actually ended up hearing about medical writing as a career pathway at NIH. So I just went to one of these career seminars, and there was actually a speaker there who was describing her job, and I thought, oh, okay, this is very similar to what I would like to do. So I ended up applying for a job upon us return to Australia. I ended up applying for a job at Envision Pharma Group, which is a global medical affairs company who do a lot of medical writing and medical communications work with pharmaceutical clients. And then ended up getting the job a couple of months later. So in October 2022, I started the job. So I've been on the job for about 5 months now.
What what is medical writing, by the way?
Yeah, so I think a lot of people don't really know what medical writing is. And before I went to that talk at NIH, I didn't really know what it was. I'd never really heard of it as a career pathway. So so medical writing can be very varied in the field. So you have so you have some that are on publications, some that are going to be more like medical communications writing, which will be various documents that pharma companies can use internally, but also use to communicate with patients and communicate with healthcare professionals. And then also you have regulatory writing. So I do mostly publications-based writing and also medical communications writing. So publications-based would be essentially you're taking data from clinicians or clinical trials or from the pharma company, and you're essentially trying to write that up as best you can and develop medical strategy for their communications. So we are constantly looking at ways where we can help them to uh, convey their data, convey important data in the field. So we work across different therapy areas. So, you might be working on something on neuroscience or immunology, cancer research. Literally, you can do anything. So that is very varied in the field too. So publications-based writing is a bit different from medical communications, where you are going to have a varied range of documents. You might be working on a slide deck for the company, or you might be working on a plain language summary for patients. So just thinking about how you could have that wider range. I think medical writing is really varied. Depends on the company.
We will go on to the next one.
Mhm.
How did your PhD and postdoc prepare you for this job?
Yeah, so I guess as a medical writer at the moment, I do a lot of writing. So it's something which I really actually enjoyed during my time in academia. So that's something I definitely did love and wanted to pursue a bit more of. So I had heaps of writing experience during my PhD and postdocs. So that included my thesis writing, writing my own research papers, also being able to contribute to writing and editing for other people as well. So other people in the lab, either previous members who had left or people who didn't want to write up their work. I was actually contributing to that as a postdoc as well. I also wrote up grant applications. So grant applications are really helpful with being able to kind of work out what was really important to convey in research. And also I've prepared ethics applications for both animal work and also for human subjects. So I think that's kind of also really helpful. So just being able to understand the different kinds of writing in an academic environment and seeing how that could be applied. I also developed skills. I had a very broad exposure of skills during my PhD and postdocs, which allowed me to think about how other types of skills like project management and also engaging with collaborators or clients could actually be also very useful for this kind of job. So basically, it's do you have the skills to lead projects, which most people doing a PhD or postdoc do have. It's just being able to actually say it in that way. And also engagement with collaborators as a potential way to say, oh, I can actually do these interactions with key clients and stakeholders. So I think that's something, just thinking about how you could take your academic skill set would be very valuable. I also took on other opportunities around the lab in both of my postdocs. So my time at NIH and my time at ANU, and also my time as a PhD student. I actually went above and beyond in the time that I had spare. And I ended up taking on a lot of administrative jobs around the lab, management, organizing mouse colonies, supervision, etc. And I think that all really helped to be able to build a skill set as well.
Awesome. Yeah, like there's lots of transferable skills there. What is the biggest difference between your current position and academia?
Yeah, so there's actually a couple of differences which I think are very easy to see in my role. I've been here for 5 months now, so I kind of think, okay, well, there's definitely some key differences that I can notice. I guess the biggest one is that it's very deadline driven. So we're responsible for delivering projects on time and hold ourselves accountable to it. So I think in academia, you do set yourself certain deadlines, or you do have kind of these soft deadlines that you want to meet for yourself. But I think in this kind of being in industry, I think you definitely have to set these deadlines and meet them. So that's something which is definitely very important, and it's an important skill to learn during your PhD and postdocs if you can. And just like, again, practice holding yourself accountable, because I think that's something which is good. If you set yourself a deadline and say, okay, well, why didn't I meet this deadline? Or can I do something differently to meet this deadline next time? That's a really, really big part of the job. It's a very professional setting. So I think the other thing is, I think in academia, I always thought maybe, you speak it like an academic language, but I feel like in an industry setting, it's really, there's a lot of discussions around the business side of science. So I think being able to familiarize yourself with the language that is being used is very similar to kind of other big companies where they actually use, they use deliverables, and they kind of talk in a different kind of language. So I think being able to understand that, and when you're doing your client interactions, being able to go into a meeting and understand how they like to communicate, I think is a really big thing. So that's something I definitely notice is different about academia versus industry jobs.
Wow. Yeah, you have to learn a whole new language.
Yes.
Yep. The next question is, what should someone be interested in if they consider a similar career path?
Yeah, so I think as a medical writer, so that's what I'm doing at the moment. But in this medical affairs kind of role, I think you really need to have an interest in clinical research and in medical writing. So I think you need to really love writing, because we do a lot of that. But also, as I mentioned, doing some of the other things like project management, interactions with collaborators, clients, and clinicians, and wanting to make an impact that's in the company, I think is definitely going to be very useful. If you are interested in these things, this could be a good career path for you. The other thing as a medical writer specifically is that it would be really good if you like remote work. It's not always possible to be based somewhere with an office. And I think that's the biggest thing around medical writing, is that it's actually easy to find jobs because you can find them anywhere. But the problem is that you need to be okay with working remotely. So right now, the nearest office to me is in Sydney, which is about 3 hours away from where I am in Canberra, which is actually okay because I can make the trip up every now and then and just kind of say hi and interact with my team members and colleagues. But I think being able to actually have the flexibility around working from home is also really important. So have a think about the way you like to work, and that's something which is also a big factor in the field. I would definitely look at your values and skills. Have a think about what is valuable to you as a person and what you actually enjoy doing at work, and also the skills that you're good at. So to make a list of your strong skills, and just think about what kind of career options could be good. So I think doing things like this, attending career seminars, like ISER, I think this is a really great opportunity. But also you might have, in the organizations where you're at, universities, you may actually have exposure to some of these different kind of career talks. Definitely head to those. Have a look at the options outside of academia. So think about what you could actually do with your skills and your values that you're of most interest. Also practice cold emailing and informational interviews. So cold emailing is basically where you make a list of people who you might actually want to talk to, and get advice from, or understand their experiences. Send an email. You may not get a response back, and don't be offended. It's just that some people do not respond. Some people do respond though. And for the people that do respond, set up an informational interview with them. So if you haven't heard of informational interviewing, you can essentially ask somebody for about 20 to 30 minutes about different aspects of their job and what it entails. It's not asking for a job, but it is asking about their job. So that is something that I did, which I found was really, really helpful. So definitely start pursuing this if you're interested in this career pathway.
Oh, that's a really great tip on informational interviewing.
Thanks.
The last question we have is, if someone is interested in doing something similar, can they do something now to prepare them during their PhD and postdoc?
Yeah, so I'd say there's a couple of things on my list which would be very, well, I guess, pretty important stuff that you can already do at various stages, even if you're a PhD student, or if you're doing a postdoc. Picking up writing experience where possible, I think, is definitely number one on the list. Anything counts here. So, write up a paper, volunteer to do some editing, write up that grant application. If your lab is looking for a person to help with animal ethics applications, contribute to that. These things will all help you kind of build your skills and being able to know how a formal document is written up. And I think paper writing, I think, is really helpful for that. In kind of introductory roles to like medical writing, so as an associate medical writer, you'll usually be trained pretty well in this kind of thing. But it still helps to be able to show that you are capable of writing before you go into an interview. I would definitely encourage you to take on extra tasks around the lab. Although these may take time, if you have time and if time permits in your day, I definitely recommend being able to contribute to the wider lab or the wider organization. So don't just think about the research, but also think about what are the soft skills that you can learn. And this is leading into the next point about transferable skills. And I actually have a list here of transferable skills that I'm going to read out, which I'm not going to spend too much time on, but I wanted to say that this is useful for not only this kind of job, but any kind of job. So any employer will be looking for these skills. You don't have to have all of them, but you do need to know how to articulate your experiences and how they might be able to help. So from an academic point of view, these are the things that you could say. So communication. This could be presentations, writing, and we actually usually have pretty strong skills as academics in terms of communication, problem solving, and logical thinking. These we also develop basically from the time that we're doing our PhDs. We are analytical, we're creative, we're thinking about how to solve problems. And I think that's something that's also an easy sell for us. Teamwork. We always work with labs, we always work in collaborative environments. You are constantly collaborating with other labs. And if you are on any committees or if you're on any kind of other societies, these are also kind of teamwork settings. So I'd say sell those skills as well. That's definitely something which is very valuable. Self-motivation, being able to take the initiative and take on some of these extracurricular activities, as I mentioned, taking on those lab duties. Although they may be such a pain, it's definitely worth doing because you can show that you're part of a wider, you're contributing to the wider organization. The ability to work under pressure, I think, is a really big one, and being able to meet deadlines. We do this as part of our thesis writing. If you're doing any grant writing, you will also have this down, and definitely sell those skills. Managing competing deadlines. All of these things can be sold in terms of this skill. Work ethic. And this is something which is not to be, it's not to be trivialized at all, but I think creating a positive workplace and being a positive person and showing dedication to the role really can make a difference and can help you get over the line in an interview. Dependability. They want to know that your projects can be done on time. So example, again, your thesis or certain papers, set yourself those deadlines and adhere to them. Adaptability and autonomy is another one that we've definitely learned during the pandemic. And I think during the pandemic, we got put through the ringer with COVID and being able to work from home, having to change our style, having to change the interactions we had with our team. So definitely draw on this experience because this is very helpful that future employers know that you are autonomous and that you are actually able to be adaptable. Leadership. Can't stress how much this one is important, but look for opportunities to be on committees and leadership. So this is something which definitely helped in my career. I had quite a bit to do with ISER in committee roles and on the council. So I think this is something that was really helpful for me. And I definitely recommend you look out for those opportunities. Take the initiative. And finally, organization. I think that's something which being well organized can be something that is going to lead you a long way. There's something else on this list which is a little harder to kind of develop, and that's self-confidence. I'm still learning how to develop that, but I think that's also something which can come across in interviews if you are going out for that new role. Self-confidence can be a huge one. So come up with a story for all of these transferable skills. Have a think about how it actually might apply to your own experience and be confident with that list. And then you will actually realize how you might be able to actually transfer your skills from academia to industry. This is often one of the things as academics we're very unsure about. So with medical writing, it also is very applicable that you can think about those skills and how you could actually apply those to a career as a medical writer. If you're interested in medical writing as a career, please do reach out. I'm happy to talk to anybody at any time. Reach out on LinkedIn or by email. My email address is nilisha.f@gmail.com. I'll also try and share it in the chat after this seminar. I'm happy to talk to people offline about their careers, so please don't hesitate to reach out. We at Envision Pharma Group are doing a lot to hire actually a lot of new people at the moment. We're a growing company. We have a lot of new roles and there's a lot of demand. So, we're always hiring across the world. So it's a global company hiring in the UK and Europe, the US, and then also in the Asia Pacific region and Australia. So if you are interested, please reach out and I'm happy to put you in touch and let you know if we're hiring. There are opportunities for career progression in medical writing, so you can actually kind of go from a writer to a more senior role and project manager and account director. So you can think about those as being kind of potential career pathways in the future. We do a lot of publications writing, but there's also a lot of med communications. So medical communications documents look a bit different. but that's something which we enjoy, the balance of being able to do both of those. Having said that, other companies also do regulatory writing, so they may do kind of clinical trials write-ups or writing ethics. So just think about and do your research about what a company does and the kinds of writing that they do, because it'll be very different between companies. And finally, I'd just like to say that medical writing is in high demand, and any experience in the field is very much valued. So if you want to even go on and do something different, and you don't want to be a medical writer, but you want to go into industry project management, it's still handy to have the stepping stone to develop the skills to communicate with clinicians, communicate with other pharma companies. So I'd say really build on this experience, and hopefully, it works out for you. So I'm loving my job as a medical writer at the moment, and I'm really excited to see where it's going. But yeah, as I said, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out.